Okay, this is one of the problems, or similar to the language of the problem on the North Carolina 7th grade release test from 2015. I kind of changed up some of the constants and the terminology in the problem, but it resembles it somewhat anyway. The standard that it correlates to is 7.rp.3. This is where we learned about percents. Mr. Gray spent $312 on a football game ticket. 25% of the cost was spent on parking. He spent the remainder on food and drinks. How much did he spend on food and drinks? So clearly you can see that this is a two-step word problem. Since I'm dealing with percents, I know that all percents begin as 100. All of them. It says that 25% of the cost was spent on parking, so I can break that 100% into 4 25%. I'm dividing that whole piece by 4 in fourths. Okay? Now, I know that 25% was parking. I know that 75% was food and drinks. All I'm doing is translating what the problem's giving me. You're probably wondering, what are these models called that Mr. Greer is using? You've seen them before. They're bar models. I encourage you to use them. When we're problem solving word problems, we use the Buck method in the few additional steps that I gave you. That picture that I encourage you to draw, I would adopt the bar model strategy. Okay? Now, let's take our knowledge of percents and translate it using the information from the problem. I'm going to use this same whole piece, this whole bar. 100% was $312. Well, I know that I broke that $312 or that 100% into 4 pieces. Why? Because my first bullet told me 25% of something. I know there's 4 quarters in a dollar, so there's 4 25% in 100%. So I'm going to break this 312 into fourths. Well, if I want to know what 25%, what each minibar or fourth equals, I can do 312 divided by 4. And it'll tell me what each piece equals, right? Yeah. Or I can do 25% of 312. 0.25 times 312. But that's the same as doing 312 divided by 4. It's the same thing. I guarantee you. When I do that, and I punch that in my handy dandy calculator, save time, I'm going to do it. 312 divided by 4. I can't see it. 78. Okay. So here I spent $78 on parking, and that means all these other fourths have to equal 78. Okay. So I know that I spent on parking. This marker's no good. I know that I spent on parking $78. Well, the question is, how much did he spend on food and drinks? Well, I know that if I started with $312, that's what I started with, and I subtract $78, which is the parking, do my math. 2 minus 8 I can't do. I borrow from there, that becomes a 0, that becomes a 12. There's a 4. I can't do 0 minus 7. Borrow from the 3, that becomes a 10. 3. I get $234 left. Well, the only other thing I purchased was food and drinks. So that has to be how much he spent on food and drinks. Well, Mr. Gray, how can I be sure? Well, I know if this was parking, this had to be food and drinks. And if I do 78 plus 78 plus 78, I should get $234.